already started this thing and I didn't even know. Oh my goodness, this is Tony from the Valley Indy. And we are here. It is Thursday. It is just about the end of September and we're getting ready
How do you feel about September?
Well, I feel
it's the end of September now.
I feel a lot better about it now. You know, I was doing a lot of reading of Greek mythology.
Tony's a Wiccan, by the way.
And I was doing a lot of reading of Greek mythology in August, and it was just so depressing hearing all of the stories of all the gods that die in September. You know, Dionysus and Pan and all these people get abducted, and it's so depressing. But you know, I'm over
that
it
Kiss
now.
song, "God of Thunder." Did you ever hear the God of Thunder?
Yeah, that's
and
about
rock
Thor,
and
isn't
roll. That's about Gene Simmons, obviously.
Yeah, but seriously, Dionysus is the god of rock and roll.
I was serious.
I didn't know that Thor was the god of rock and roll, but I guess that for Kiss
Simmons
it
is the god of rock
Gene
and roll.
Simmons.
Yeah, all right, see you next week.
Bye.
All right, so it's our podcast.
And Tony keeps talking about beer.
Yeah, we're having
death.
the beer festival in Seymour. It's really exciting. The Oktoberfest comes to Seymour.
What's going on this weekend?
How many
smokes.
beers will
And
they
so
We're
serve?
going to have
Harvest
over
Festival?
30 craft beers, and I know Eugene doesn't like it when you say craft beer.
I just don't like it when you hand in a story that says craft beer and never explain what it is.
So tell our readers, what is craft beer?
Well, craft beer is a fancy name for microbrew, a small brewery that, you know, is off the beaten path and makes things a bit different is a craft beer. You know, it's a microbrew. Sam Adams is probably the most famous microbrew in the United States right now.
Yeah,
You like Sam Adams?
sure.
I'm allergic to it, unfortunately.
All right, let's talk about... Jody just got back from an SPJ conference. That's the Society of Professional Journalists. That's right, we're professional journalists. I'm a member of the organization.
Although they just raised dues, so...
Right, and what I wanted... Well, let's talk about what was the... First, Jody tried to stage a coup. This was a national conference, and apparently Jody and the Connecticut chapter, it was like...
Essentially,
I don't know who's in it. But was that... Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to talk about...
I want to talk about more about like what we talked about in terms of journalism and ethics and that sort of thing.
Not the coup. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about that.
You don't have to. I mean...
Essentially,
it
like...
failed, right?
I'm embarrassed. We go there for two reasons. Like, journalists go there to learn about, you know, what's new in the industry and see what other people are doing. And then board members go, we're basically like elected members of Congress, of SPJ. We vote on things that are happening like on the national level. So they voted to...
And you're a member of the Connecticut SPJ board.
Correct. So I was there.
That's how fancy we are, people.
I was there as a voting member, and we found out that they had raised dues, and so we put forth this resolution to fight that. We failed, but we felt like really good about it, I guess, at the end of the day. But that's not what I want to talk about, because I don't think our readers really care about that.
I don't think they care about any of this.
True.
It's called navel gazing.
The cool thing, all right, the cool thing was I'm in a session about ethics. SPJ came out with a new ethics book, which I brought in, by the way. I should have it over here. Yeah, it's $50. I had charged it before I realized how much it was, and at that point, it was too late.
I guess it'd be unethical. You can't steal an ethics
Right, you
book.
can't steal the ethics book. Although it doesn't say that in there. Ethics is, you know, the gray area between should you take this or that, what should you cover. And it got onto a topic of anonymous comments. And is it ethical for newspapers to allow people to comment anonymously and make accusations that they wouldn't allow people to put in, you know, in the letters to the editor page anonymously? And so Valley Indy got a little shot out there because they were saying, does anyone not allow anonymous comments? And, you know, I raised my hand and said, like, my newspaper doesn't. We use Facebook Connect. Which started this really interesting dialogue where everyone was saying, oh, I wish we could do that, but, you know, we want to get, like, the page views from the comments.
Right.
And, but generally, on the whole, I think journalists, like the working reporters and editors, hate anonymous comments.
Right.
And it's more like whoever's doing...
It's whoever's disconnected from the scene, whether it be corporate...
Right.
Whether it be your online editor or whoever's job it is to generate page views tends to like anonymous. And I say this because I was an online editor, and
Counting
they
the
would
page
generate
views.
page views.
Oh, yeah.
You like photo galleries,
Mm-hmm.
comments. You know, when newspapers used to have message boards. I worked at a place. Well, I haven't worked at. We had a message board where I won't go into it. Actually, it had nothing to do with the newspaper site.
Weird.
It was just a message board that the IT guy had set up, and it was anyway. We also had a Smurf on our site. But.
Well, it turned into this whole thing where the reporters are saying, like, you know, in some cases they can't get people to talk to them on a normal story because average citizens are afraid, like, look, if I'm quoted in that story, my ex-boyfriend is going to, like, anonymously say bad stuff about me. So it's, you know, it's affecting their jobs.
And one thing, you know, we covered in the last 2 weeks that unfortunate story up there at Derby Middle School where the dean of students was arrested for allegedly having painkillers in 2 bags. It's all over the site. And I got a letter, well, not a letter, an email yesterday from a middle school teacher who said, nothing, didn't really comment on the story, but said, you know, on other sites, the principal who initiated all this and searched the person's bag is getting assassinated online. It's saying all these things anonymously that have nothing to do really with what's happening. It's like there's, you know, so that made me, I was happy that, you know, okay, we were not allowing that kind of thing. And I think it's different because there's some in journalism. You'll see some of the like the professors and the talking heads on Twitter, like, you know, I guess like a Jeff Jarvis and whoever who's the other guy? He's affiliated with JRC now. And there's that he looks like Grover a little bit. And there's that thing where
I know who you're talking about, but I don't know.
I can't remember his name. Sorry, like but they say things like, well, you're telling your readers to get off your lawn, right? And it just doesn't work at this level. At a hyper-local, small publication like ours, you have such a small audience, you have such a cult following almost in your community. You can see people getting hurt when you allow anonymous comments. At least that's what was happening in the Valley. You know, the New Haven Independent, our sister site, that doesn't happen. They have a wonderful commenting system. They have people who are engaged who don't tend to do that. But I found that it wasn't worth it. And the letter I got from the middle school teacher backed that up.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So if anything, it had so much more, when you're this small, it can do so much more damage to your reputation as a publication. And reporters always hate it. I knew I hated it when I was a reporter because I would walk in to, say, Danbury City Hall, and I would get killed for what some idiot wrote on the website, which I didn't even know was there.
Right.
You know, it was like...
And that was felt like across the nation. Like, there was probably 50 people in this room, and they were saying the same stuff.
It's just not worth the page views, you know? Like, to me, it's the equivalent of when, you know, if you own a storefront business, you know, whatever, a stationery store, a paper store, whatever, and, you know, some random guy comes over and defecates on your stoop and then walks away. You have to deal with the aftermath. And that's what I got so sick of with comments. Like, why am I dealing with all this? Anyway, that was off on a tangent.
But that was
that was the best thing. I mean, did you come back? Because, you know, I haven't gone to a conference in a while. You always come back and you're just ready to kind of. Do you feel like this is your first day back, or have we already beat that out of you after 8 hours in the valley? No, I do feel like,
I know. Today I come back and I'm like running around, but I do feel energized to, like, because everyone's together talking about, like, journalism and doing good journalism and trying to, like, help your community, and whether or not they agree with certain things that happen. Like, it does feel good to come back and, like, no, okay, we're not the only ones who are, like, plugging away trying to cover a community. Like, there's people out there. And what I like about these is, like, you meet the other, like, online only, like, independent news sites from little towns. Yeah, there's,
really?
Like, other
I wouldn't have even thought that. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. And, like, we all, you know, I always reach out to them and sort of, like, bounce ideas off. So they're different. They're not all like what we do. Some of them are, like, there was one in Long Island that they do, it's like society page, but it's online.
Oh, nice.
And I said, does that get a lot of...
It's like in the Hamptons or something?
Yeah, it is. I think it's in the Hamptons.
Of course it is.
And they get a lot of hits, and she says they do well, and I don't know.
They get like Howard Stern and his wife, Beth.
Yeah, like if there's like an event at like their hospital, and, you know, whoever famous goes, they go and cover the event and take pictures and make money off the ads, I guess they sell.
Well, nice.
So they're different, but... So
we got 5 seconds left. Tony, are you going to this weekend's Smoke in the Valley?
Smoke in the Valley, Seymour's Oktoberfest. No, I can't. I'm allergic to most beer. You know, it's strange.